I have finally got my hands on a Nintendo Switch 2. It took a couple weeks, but I finally was able to find one at my local Target, which is actually one of the last places I thought to check. Primarily because the last time I bought anything at Target was a Nintendo 2DS back in 2016, I think. Something to say as we're jumping into the video is that I had to do a lot of this in voiceover, primarily because of the audio quality during recording was just absolutely terrible, so I had to re-record the audio after the fact, so some things probably won't line up as nicely. So far, my initial impressions of the actual physical build quality of the Switch 2 is absolutely stellar. I love this soft touch, high quality plastic feel. The overall size of it is way bigger than I actually have anticipated. I've held devices like the Legion Go and the Legion Go S stuff, and those are around 8 to 7 inch screens, and those are pretty massive. And purely because it has huge bezels and just feels very heavy, and it's just a very large device, generally speaking. So when I saw the Switch 2 having pretty much an 8-inch screen, I didn't expect it to be nearly as large as it did. And not necessarily because I thought the Switch 2 was going to have a small screen or anything like that, but it's primarily because how thin it is and how large of a footprint it has in the hand. It is massive, and I actually really like that. One of the biggest features that I appreciate about the Legion Go and other of those kinds of handhelds is how large the screen is. And personally, in terms of the screen so far, I have zero issues with it not being OLED. I love an IPS display. This is a nice high quality HDR 120Hz IPS type display, and it's good enough. I have literally zero complaints so far about the overall screen quality. Battery is another story. The battery life on this thing is not great. I charged up to about 87% after I got through the whole setup process, transferred data from my old Switch, which was dead, so I had the secondary Switch I had at the time. Finished transferring the data from there and from the cloud. The whole process took about 15-20 minutes, and that's because my Wi-Fi was not doing great at the time. But from my experience, it got better as it finished setting up and downloading the games, and the battery life was something that wasn't good out the gate, in my opinion. I charged it up to 87% and booted up Mario Kart World because I got the bundle and did one circuit, 4 races. That's it. I went from 87 all the way down to 54% battery. That is not ideal. I burnt 30% on one circuit. That is insane. And then again, I haven't gone in and did any battery management things. I kept it at whatever the default settings were when you first turn on the Switch 2. I've seen some people say turning off HDR and lowering it from 120 FPS will increase battery life, which is fairly obvious, but the Switch 2 has those features, and I want to be able to use them. I am a kind of person who's always at full tilt, full watt every time I play, regardless of if I wanted to extend the battery life or not. I will not compromise on the physical performance and quality of the game to do so. It's just a compromise that I've made and something that I will not sacrifice. And I have accepted that will negatively impact the battery life of pretty much every device I have. So I am more understanding of bad battery life in terms of PC handhelds and stuff like that. But the Switch 2 isn't a PC handheld. All I'm doing is playing Mario Kart. The Switch 2's battery life burnt in one circuit was insane. Like I said, it went from 87 to 54-ish. That is more than 30% gone before the system has even finished 2 circuits. And that is, to me, just a little ridiculous. Other things I've seen from just my first couple hours of using it, the dock is huge. And I get it, and I'm not a huge fan of the sort of magnetic attach rear door. I would have preferred it to be a hinge system, much like the older Switch. But that's mostly a preference thing. I do like how the cable is separate from the charging cube, and you can use your old Switch chargers to charge the Switch 2, but you can't use the old chargers to power the Switch 2 when it is in dock mode, which is an interesting caveat that I've seen online. I haven't personally tested it out yet, but I tend to err on the side of caution, especially after my last Switch died due to battery drain issues. So anything involving charging and battery, I tend to err on the side of caution. So far, when it comes to the Switch 2 games I've played, it is limited to playing Mario Kart World, and there isn't really any games that I'm super anticipating. I'm not gonna get Donkey Kong Bonanza. I never personally cared for it. And Mario Kart World, I was even that especially excited for because I was very apprehensive of the open world style of gameplay. But after one circuit, it is a lot better than I had anticipated. What I'm most excited about are the third-party stuff. I really am excited to see games like Elden Ring come to the platform. And something else that has drawn me to the Switch 2 is playing my original Switch games, but at better quality. And not every game is going to get massive updates like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. But by sheer virtue of it being a more powerful system, some games will perform better. For example, Minecraft. Minecraft was a terrible experience on the original Switch, but thanks to the Switch 2 being more powerful, I'm able to maintain a constant 60-ish FPS at the maximum quality settings that the Switch is allotted, which, bear in mind, is not a lot. It's 12 chunks, 2 times 2 anti-aliasing, normal beautiful skies. You will not be getting all the new visual improvements from the Chase the Skies update, so that is a little disappointing, especially since my iPhone can get them and my 6-year-old Android device can get the new vibrant visuals, but my Nintendo Switch 2 can't. Technically, it's the original Switch 1 version of the game, so it's not too surprising. And games like Borderlands 3 and Hogwarts Legacy have come to the platform and the run significantly better than they originally did on the Switch 1, which is to be anticipated. So my best thing I think I've enjoyed the most, and something that since getting the Switch 2 these last few hours has shown me, is that the Switch 2, while not necessarily being an amazing handheld right now and has some minor issues here and there and needs some more time to mature, honestly, for me and how I play my games, the Switch 2 is still a great system, while not necessarily designed for everybody. Though, for me, a person who likes getting the most visual and performance out of my games, the Switch 2 is actually a decent investment, even though there is pretty much no launch title that I really cared for. But so far, these are just my initial thoughts. I'll spend the next couple of weeks testing the device, using it, and just playing more games on it, and I'll come back with a full review in a couple of weeks. I would love to hear what you guys think, though. Have you been able to get your hands on a Switch 2? Have you even thought about getting a Switch 2? Because I know I was pretty apprehensive, but when I saw the chance to get one, I hopped on it. I would love to hear what you guys think down below. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all the other social media garbage down below. And last but not least, have a wonderful day.